are you wearing?
Just want to let everybody know we are now live on YouTube, so you're welcome to unmute yourselves, but just know you're being broadcast.
Alana, I just want to know where you're getting all this energy from.
Yeah, I was having that same issue. That's why I eventually just took off audio.
So who's got a headache now?
Take off the audio if you don't want to listen. Or I can send a nice chat that
Okay.
says that we need to
Hey,
attend.
Fran, David.
Yeah, we're unmuted now.
As a guest to your congregation, I want to thank you for the opportunity to join with you, because our congregation, the Jewish Temple Association in Jackson, did not meet. So thank you for welcoming us. We enjoyed it very much. I'm also streaming on television, so I'm watching 3 services
In this
at
one.
one time. I've never had more of a young kipper than this year.
I would like
And
to
We'll have you,
hear
Seymour.
video.
I'm in every religion. I'm Reform, I'm Conservative, I'm Orthodox.
I-
It's
I
a
don't know.
pleasure to have you with us, Seymour.
It was a pleasure to be here, and I only hope if we don't meet next year, we meet in our own synagogues, and we'll be well, and this tragedy that's confronting us will end. And as one of the
Hopefully.
rabbis said in the other congregation, we can't atone for all of the sins. We can't absolve ourselves of all, but if we meet each other halfway with God, we'll be there. Likewise, he said, we hope our political leaders will meet halfway and solve the problems confronting our country, which at this point is an absolute horror.
Soon.
Nothing political, please.
It's not political. It's for both
Just saying that.
both sides.
Okay. Here we go. Move on, please.
Thank you, Cantor. I love listening to your voice.
I'm not the cantor.
Thank you.
Would you like to be?
Cantor heard me.
I quoted a cantor. But you've done
Here's your mom,
a
Dan.
pleasure to meet you, Rabbi Blum.
Is my mom on?
Pleasure to meet you
Pleasure.
too,
Yeah.
Seymour.
She just
And good luck in your
chatted.
position. The congregation is lucky to have you.
Yes.
Yes, yes, we are.
And the cantor, enjoyed your presentation. You've got a great voice.
He does.
Yes, and it's great to hear him in surround sound this year.
I'm also impressed. I'm impressed with the familiarity of the people in the congregation. I belonged to one
Multi-
like that when I lived in Scranton, Temple Israel in Scranton, Pennsylvania. We knew each other. So enjoy each other while you can. The years passed and a lot of our congregation disappeared. So enjoy each other while you can. You've got a treasure there.
Well spoken.
Die,
Well
be
spoken.
well.
Others on too.
Take care
Yeah.
of yourself.
How about we use that note to launch us into our Yizkor service?
good. That
Go for
sounds
Thank you,
good.
Rabbi.
I missed
Go for
him.
it.
We're muted.
So we're gonna have everybody mute.
There we go.
Rabbi, you're back to being muted.
There's too many cooks in the kitchen. All right, I'm unmuted now. Our tradition shows great wisdom in teaching us to gather for services of remembrance on Yom Kippur and on the 3 pilgrimage festivals of Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. These moments that mark the seasons of the year and the seasons of our lives awaken strong memories of relationships that shaped us, sustained us, and sometimes challenged us, and of holy days we shared with loved ones and cherished friends. When they are gone, we can still affirm the beautiful and lasting values we learned from them and remember them in all of their humanness. One of the ways we do that is by coming together as a community of comfort and care. There are also many ways to express how we feel about and enjoy the lasting memories of our loved ones. Our member, Brett Fenster, passed away 10 years ago at the age of 23. His father, David, composed a song that embodies both his loss and his everlasting love. We are blessed to hear David's moving music yet again this Yom Kippur. If you would like to refer to our memorial book during this service, you can view it online by using the link in the chat box. And as with so many Jewish rituals, Yizkor too begins with the lighting of a candle. To express gratitude for all the lights in our lives, I offer up these words from our prayer book. At birth, a miracle. You light the spark in every human soul. Emerging into light, we breathe it in, the neshama, your sacred gift of life. And every day, every breath comes to us as a miracle. The light within us, unique and precious, is with us always while we live. When breath has ceased and life has gone, the neshama returns to you. And the spark that lived inside the ones we love, unique and precious, beautiful and good, is theirs no more. Their light is ours. Their radiance now burns in us. Eternal flame of memory. So we light candles to keep our love alive, to bring their light into the world, a light unique and precious, ours to treasure while we live. A ner tamid, an eternal light that lights our days and gives us strength to journey through the nights. Our service will continue in just a moment.
Yana emsacha mekomecha na'alav ne'elam ve'ana lo emsacha kevodecha ma.
Sorry about that. The video is popping up.
Yana emsacha mekomecha na'alav ne'elam ve'ana lo emsacha.
We're so sorry, everyone. The video is giving us some trouble. Please give us a moment and we'll try to get it up.
Yana emsacha mekomecha na'alav ne'elam ve'ana lo emsacha kevodecha malei olam. Darashti kirvatcha bechol libi keraticha ופצעתי לקראתך, לקראתי מצאתיך. מי יאמר לא רחה, אין שמיים וחילם, יגידו מורך, בלי נשמע קולם.
This is a wonderful piece by Michael Gartner, editor of newspapers large and small, and former president of NBC News. It is a piece about his parents, but if you change around some of the details, it just as easily can be about your loved ones too. My father never drove a car. Well, that's not quite right. I should say I never saw him drive a car. He quit driving in 1927 when he was 25 years old, and the last car he drove was a 1926 Whippet. In those days, he told me when he was in his 90s, to drive a car, you had to do things with your hands and do things with your feet and look every which way, and I decided you could walk through life and enjoy it, or drive through life and miss it. At which point my mother, a sometimes salty Irish woman, chimed in. "Oh, bull," she said, "he hit a horse." Well, my father said, there was that too. So my brother and I grew up in a household without a car. The neighbors all had cars. The Collingses next door had a green 1941 Dodge. The Van Lanninghams across the street, a gray 1936 Plymouth. The Hobsons 2 doors down, a black 1941 Ford. But we had none. My father, a newspaper man in Des Moines, would take the streetcar to work and, often as not, walk the 3 miles home. If he took the streetcar home, my mother and brother and I would walk the 3 blocks to the streetcar stop, meet him, and walk home together. My brother David was born in 1935, and I was born in 1938. And sometimes at dinner, we'd ask how come all the neighbors had cars, but we had none. No one in the family drives, my mother would explain, and that was that. But sometimes my father would say, but as soon as one of you boys turns 16, we'll get one. It was as if he wasn't sure which one of us would turn 16 first. But sure enough, my brother turned 16 before I did. So in 1951, my parents bought a used 1950 Chevrolet from a friend who ran the parts department at a Chevy dealership downtown. It was a 4-door, white model, stick shift, fender skirts, loaded with everything, and since my parents didn't drive, it more or less became my brother's car. Having a car but not being able to drive didn't bother my father, but it didn't make sense to my mother. So in 1952, when she was 43 years old, she asked a friend to teach her to drive. She learned in a nearby cemetery, the place where I learned to drive the following year, and where a generation later, I took my 2 sons to practice driving. The cemetery was probably my father's idea. "Who can your mother hurt in the cemetery?" I remember him saying more than once. For the next 45 years or so, until she was 90, my mother was the driver in the family. Neither she nor my father had any sense of direction, but he loaded up on maps, though they seldom left the city limits, and appointed himself navigator. It seemed to work. Still, they both continued to walk a lot. My mother was a devout Catholic, and my father an equally devout agnostic, an arrangement that didn't seem to bother either of them through their 75 years of marriage. Yes, 75 years, and they were deeply in love the entire time. He retired when he was 70, and nearly every morning for the next 20 years or so, he would walk with her the mile to St. Augustine's Church. She would walk down and sit in the front pew, and he would wait in the back until he saw which of the parish's 2 priests was on duty that morning. If it was the pastor, my father then would go out and take a 2-mile walk, meeting my mother at the end of the service and walking her home. If it was the assistant pastor, he'd take just a 1-mile walk and then head back to the church. He called the priests Father Fast and Father Slow. After he retired, my father almost always accompanied my mother whenever she drove anywhere, even if he had no reason to go along. If she were going to the beauty parlor, he'd sit in the car and read, or go take a stroll, or if it was summer, have her keep the engine running so he could listen to the Cubs game on the radio. In the evening then, when I'd stop by, he'd explain, "The Cubs lost again. The millionaire on second base made a bad throw to the millionaire on first base, so the multimillionaire on third base scored." If she were going to the grocery store, he would go along to carry the bags out and to make sure she loaded up on ice cream. As I said, he was always the navigator, and once, when he was 95 and she was 88 and still driving, he said to me, "Do you want to know the secret of a long life?" "I guess so," I said, knowing it probably would be something bizarre. "No left turns," he said. "What?" "No left turns," he repeated. "Several years ago, your mother and I read an article that said most accidents that old people are in happen when they turn left in front of oncoming traffic. As you get older, your eyesight worsens and you can lose your depth perception," it said. "So your mother and I decided never again to make a left turn." "What?" I said again. "No left turns," he said. "Think about it. 3 rights are the same as a left, and that's a lot safer. So we always make 3 rights." "You're kidding," I said, and I turned to my mother for support. "No," she said, "your father is right. We make 3 rights. It works." But then she added, "Except when your father loses count." I was driving at the time, and I almost drove off the road as I started laughing. "Loses count?" I asked. "Yes," my father admitted. "That sometimes happens, but it's not a problem. You just make 7 rights and you're okay again." I couldn't resist. "Do you ever go for 11? I asked. "No," he said. "If we miss it at 7, we just come home and call it a bad day. Besides, nothing in life is so important, it can't be put off another day or another week." My mother was never in an accident, but one evening she handed me her car keys and said she had decided to quit driving. That was in 1999, when she was 90. She lived 4 more years until 2003. My father died the next year at 102. They both died in the bungalow they had moved into in 1937 and bought a few years later for $3,000. 60 years later, my brother and I paid $8,000 to have a shower put in the tiny bathroom. The house never had one. My father would have died then and there if he knew the shower cost nearly 3 times what he paid for the house. He continued to walk daily. He had me get him a treadmill when he was 101 because he was afraid he'd fall on the icy sidewalks, but wanted to keep exercising. And he was of sound mind and sound body until the moment he died. One September afternoon in 2004, he and my son went with me when I had to give a talk in a neighboring town, and it was clear to all 3 of us that he was wearing out, though we had the usual wide-ranging conversation about politics and newspapers and things in the news. A few weeks later, he had told my son, "You know, Mike, the first 100 years are a lot easier than the second 100. At one point in our drive that Saturday, he said, "You know, I'm probably not going to live much longer." "You're probably right," I said. "Why'd you say that?" he countered, somewhat irritated. "Because you're 102 years old," I said. "Yes," he said, "you're right." He stayed in bed all the next day. That night, I suggested to my son and daughter that we sit up with him through the night. He appreciated it, he said, though at one point, apparently seeing us look gloomy, he said, "I would like to make an announcement. No one in this room is dead yet." An hour or so later, he spoke his last words. "I want you to know," he said clearly and lucidly, "that I am in no pain. I'm very comfortable, and I have had as happy a life as anyone on this earth could ever have." A short time later, he died. I miss him a lot, and I think about him a lot. I've wondered now and then how it was that my family and I were so lucky that he lived so long. I can't figure out if it was because he walked through life or because he quit taking left turns. Life is too short to wake up with regrets. So love the people who treat you right. Forget about the ones who don't. Believe everything happens for a reason. If you get a chance, take it. If it changes your life, let it. Nobody said life would be easy. They just promised it would most likely be worth it.
אלי, אלי, שלא ייגמר לעולם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ברק השמיים, תפילת האדם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ברק השמיים, תפילת האדם. Eli, Eli, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
This is the hour of memory, and this is our house of comfort. Wounded by loss, we retreat from life. Our synagogue gathers us in. Into this place we bring stories and prayers, unanswered questions, tears that need to be shed. Lives recollected and carried within us, moments of courage and laughter and pain. This day embraces them all. This place embraces us all. Now the heart opens in sorrow, for we are time's subjects, and all that we love, we must lose. So let us hold fast to the love that remains, and cherish the light of the sun. Today, all of us walk the mourner's path. Together, may we find strength. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until, looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting.
שיביתי אדוני לנגדי תמיד, כי מימיני בא למות, לכן שמח ליבי ויגל כבודי, אף בשרי ישכון לבטח, כי לא תעזוב נפשי לשאול, לא תיתן חסידך לראות שחת, תודיעני אורח חיים, שובע שמחות את פניך, נעימות בימינך נצח.
If some messenger were to come to us with the offer that death should be overthrown, but with the one inseparable condition that birth should also cease, if the existing generation were given the chance to live forever, but on the clear understanding that never again would there be a child or a youth or first love, never again new persons with new hopes, new ideas, new achievements, ourselves for always, and never any others, could the answer be in doubt? When we fear death's decree, let this bring us solace, the memory of loved ones who have gone before us, a vision of generations to come, through whom we reach far into the future, beyond our own lives. Alas for those that never sing, but die with all their music in them. Let us treasure the time we have and resolve to use it well, counting each moment precious, a chance to apprehend some truth, to experience some beauty, to conquer some evil, to ease some suffering, to love and be loved, to achieve something of lasting worth. There is a promise within each of us that only we can fulfill. Let us live our lives so that someday it will be true to say of us, the world is a little better because, for just one moment, they lived in it.
אשא עיני אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם אדוני, עושה שמיים, שמיים, וארץ, אל ייתן למוט רגליך, על ידום שומריך, הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל, אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך על יד ימינך, יומם השמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה. אדוני ישמרך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמר צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם.
In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us, as we remember them. No other psalm, perhaps no other prayer but the Kaddish itself, is as inseparable from our experience of grief and mourning as the 23rd Psalm. One phrase, so simple and direct yet emotionally profound, has made it so. Ki ata imadi, for you are with me. Or in the language of an earlier age, for thou art with me. The 23rd Psalm does not make promises that cannot be kept. The end of all evil, the eradication of suffering and pain, sunshine instead of shadows. It makes but one promise, only this: you are not alone.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי, לא אחסר. בינות דשא ירביצני על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי שובב ינחני ומגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררי, דשנת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
Please join me. With God as my shepherd, I shall not want. The Eternal makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, restores my soul, guides me in straight paths for the sake of God's name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Eternal forever. Our community has lost loved ones since last Yom Kippur, and it is in their memory that we offer up their names. Barbara Abraham, Ruth Abramson, Helen Bagel, Ben Balin, Rose Balin, Robert Bates, Mary Mitzi Birnbaum, Jack Brandner, James Brown, Carolyn Crawford, Leonora Damiano, Beth Elkin, Henry Eisenberg, Louis Eisenberg, Phyllis Fiegel, Rabbi Adam Feldman, Janice Frankel, Marilyn Garwood, Shivia Gerhardt, Alan Gerstel, Christine Gittleson, Jack Glazer, Erwin Goldman, Bernard Goldstein, Sophie Goldstein, Lawrence Gordon, Roberta Green, Robert Griffiths, Anita Hammond, Betsy Horahan, Nissim Levis, Julia Lichtenstein, Miriam Lichter, Walter Lieberman, Bob Lipman, Rachel Mizrahi, Nancy Narr, Herbert Nassau, Richard Pearl, Jack Petsko, Carl Pierce, Vincent Pucciati, Robert Rosenthal, Milton Rubin, Joyce Safran, Morris Schlossberg, Judith Schurek, Leo Schwartz, Marion Sherman, Edna Silberman, Mordecai Silverman, Cecil Smith, Leah Summers, Lee Stein, Harriet Ann Sternberg, Jeff Stoller, Mildred Taxler, Dawn Thackeray, Ronnie Turek, Diane Walter, Stanley Weinberg, Pearl Weiss, Ed Wendroff, Seymour Wexler, and Herman Zulo. And our nation continues to mourn the passing of two leaders, Congressman John Lewis and Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
אל מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה עם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים לנשמות יקירינו שהלכו לעולמם בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתם אדוני הוא נחלתם וינוחו בשלום על משכבם ונאמר אמן.
Merciful God, God Most High, let there be perfect rest for the souls of our loved ones who have gone into eternity. May they find shelter in your presence among the holy and pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold them close to you forever. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May they find a home in you, and may they rest in peace. Together we say, Amen. If every life were like a drop of rain, each of us a small, solitary self, then death would be for us return back to the ocean whence we came. Some raindrops soft and gentle as the showers of spring, others hard and raging like summer storms of hail and thunder. Each life a separate journey back to the beginning and back to God. Picture God as a great ocean, teeming with life in the ebb, tide, and flow, where each raindrop begins and ends, and begins again and again. In the dance of waves, we dance forever. Not I as I or you as you, and yet together, rising and falling, soft and peaceful, hard and raging. A dance we only dimly see, to music we but faintly hear, together and forever. And if all this were so, if God were like the ocean, and each of us like rain and mist, would my heart not break at losing you? Could the ocean contain my tears? We now turn to the words of Mourner's Kaddish, helping us to remember all those we have lost, both recently and in years gone by. We read together. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'almei almaya, yit barach v'yish tabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit romam v'yit naseh, v'yit hadar v'yit aleh v'yit halal shemei dekudisha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru. Amen.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our service of memory. Our closing service of Ne'ilah, followed by Havdalah, will begin at 5:30. I would also like to extend my gratitude to David Fenster and Sandy Pucciati for their beautiful music on the piano this afternoon. We have been able to make all of our Yom Kippur services, not just Yizkor, available to everyone this year. Please consider making a pledge to our High Holy Day appeal to help us offset the costs needed to maintain our sacred community. Our next Yizkor memorial service will be held on Simchat Torah, Saturday, October 10th at 12 p.m. We will conclude this service with the poetic words of Washington Irving. There is a sacredness in tears. They are not the mark of weakness, but of power. They speak more eloquently than 10,000 tongues. They are the messengers of overwhelming grief, of deep contrition, and of unspeakable love. Let us go forth this Yom Kippur afternoon with our tears and our love, and may we draw upon the memory of our loved ones to be a blessing in this world.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless us and protect us.
Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
May God's light shine upon us, and may God be gracious to us.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May we always feel that God's presence is near, and may we be blessed with the gift of shalom and shlemut, peace and wholeness.
Amen.
Take care, and we hope to see you again in just a few minutes.